Welcome back to the Unredacted Truth, where we fill in the missing gaps in the world's largest scandals and mysteries. In a world of rumors and theories, my job is simple: uncovering the truth underneath the glitter and the grime. We are exposing a pattern: protection, power, predators, structures built not on justice, but on silence, fear, and impunity. We're not talking theory, we're talking court records, stamps, dates, testimony, and a system that, to this day, continues to fail the public and protect the predators among us. Let's get to it.
Hi, welcome back or welcome to the Unredacted Truth. I am Sonia. Today's video is the finale recap of the original investigative notes from the Palm Beach Police Department in 2005 when the investigation against Jeffrey Epstein first began. I don't know if I could ever be warned about the huge emotional and I would say even spiritual kind of load and how heavy this whole topic is. Heavy. I cannot keep doing it every single day. And I've been looking at this stuff since July. I actually coming to a point where I am giving myself a little bit of leeway to notice like I can't look and film and get that into it every single day. I am gonna need days in between. So I think this is the best way where I batch record it, batch by case, or document by document, edit it and put it all at once. Take a breather, but you guys kind of have something to keep you going. Now, again, if you have not, like I said, this is the last installment of the Palm Beach Police investigative notes. So if this is your first time catching us on video, I highly recommend hit pause, or you can watch this to the end. But then after that, go back to the very first video of the police investigation note so you two can follow chronologically and also understand exactly what's going on with this whole case. I also let everybody know that I do have a Substack now where you can go on. Longer form content of the complete video would be on Substack. I'm keeping the more censored versions on YouTube, as well as Spotify to get a full picture of everything, eliminating most or all the censorship. Then you'll be able to go in Substack, and you'd also be able to print off the documents yourselves. I am actually going to be, as each document will be uploaded to Substack as we go through all the processes. So you'll be able to follow along later on or share it with your friends, whatever. The point is, here we are going to get the truth out. Can you believe it is 2026 and no one has put out the full truth of the full documents? But that's why we're here at the Unredacted Truth. No more summarization, no more narration of anything. We are just going to go through the pages, through everything together, page by page. Again, I must warn that it's highly sensitive. Be gentle with yourself as you go through it. I know I've had to find so many healing moments as myself and also deal with a lot of like difficult stuff from my past, from my family. As I'm going through this case, it definitely brings up a lot of stuff. Okay, so let me give you a quick small summary of everything that we've gone through so far to date of the police investigation notes. And then now, just for today, we are going to go through like the other evidence that we have access to. So we have some of the notepads, we have some of the trash pulls. We have gone through like the trash pull evidence before as well, but we'll just do a quick refresher through all of that. We have letters between Lana Belovic, the ASA State Attorney's Office for Palm Beach, and Jeffrey Epstein's team, like legal defense team, have emails from Alan Dershowitz, the prosecutor, and the police investigating the notes, trying to discredit the victims, especially a 14-year-old, which is actually very freaking disgusting and gross. But it also comes from the man who said statutory rape isn't a thing. Is an article of Alan Dershowitz saying that a while ago. I think I do have the note. Let me bring that up. Let me bring up the receipts so I am not cold a liar. Let's look for it here. Give me 5 seconds. Okay, there you go. I found it. It was none for you, but I found it. Here we go. I hope you see that. See, Alan Dershowitz, statutory rape is an outdated concept. So it makes sense why he was on Jeffrey Epstein's legal team and also saw zero zero reason to discredit a 14-year-old child among other victims. Now, a 16-year-old can choose abortion. She could be able. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the media sounding board on whether or not the Jeffrey Epstein files should be released. So what else did we see? What else are we seeing today? We're going through that. We have an interesting letter from the chief of police. We'll go through it together with him actually letting one of the victim's parents know that he did not think with the original indictment in 2007, when he finally went to jail the first time, that he didn't think justice was served and that he was going to forward it to the FBI for investigation because he believed there was those violations of the law. Okay, where was I? We're going to summarize quickly what we have reviewed before we jump into the investigative data and documents and files from the Palm Beach that we're able to get access to. And then we'll go on and finish it off by reviewing the word line. All right, summary of what we've done so far with the investigation notes and files. So we know up to this point, we know the investigation started on March 14th, 2005, when a mother contacted the Palm Beach Police Department to report that her 14-year-old stepdaughter had possibly been molested by a wealthy man in Palm Beach. So the parents reported that their daughter had been taken to the house by a friend named Haley Robson. We know that Haley Robson was stated as a suspect. At the time of the investigation, Haley Robson was 18, but she had been introduced to Epstein by another girl when she was 17, which is why I do not think that Haley Robson should still be looked at as a suspect or treated that way. Plus, I believe Haley's story is in the Netflix Filthy Rich documentary. Next, you also know that the 14-year-old victim, when she was interviewed, it did take her a couple of times to fully reveal everything that happened. But between her testimony, the trash bowls, as well as her father's testimony about what happened, and Haley's admittance to what happened, she was able to verify and confirm that Epstein was the man who had inappropriate contact with her. Now, the investigation so far has revealed a consistent pattern to how he operated, how the girls were brought over, and where it wanted. So Epstein would use younger girls, so girls from high school, would get girls to bring their friends. A lot of these girls knew each other. They all either went to the same high school or similar, like neighboring colleges. The college victims, though, seem to reference Ghislaine Maxwell more than the high school students whose main contact was Sarah Kellen, which I just believe because Sarah Kellen was 25 years old at the time of everything happening. I believe Epstein probably, this is just me making assumptions or like trying to deduce the patterns. We know that Ghislaine approached girls at college. We know when we came, just by reading through it, it seems that when the younger girls would come to Jeffrey Epstein, the main person was Sarah Kellen. I believe, as I read the pattern, Ghislaine was sent to the older girls because she was an older looking person. So she was able to do that mentor, mature mentor mother thing. Well, high school, no one wants a mother. Like, you don't want anybody to tell you what to do. You want to be cool. So that's why they utilized Sarah Kellen, because she gave the cool girl personality to ease the underage and the minor students into what she was doing. And again, if you do remember from the last video I did about the Billionaires Playboy Club, even Virginia talks about when she was first taken to the ranch swimming with Sarah Kellen, who was this cool, young, blonde, like poised girl that she thought was like, oh my God, so amazing. So even in Virginia, because Virginia was about 15 when she was roped into this. So although it was Maxwell who approached Virginia at Mar-a-Lago when she was 15. After that, it was predominantly like Sarah Kellen was brought in to kind of like teach her how to recruit other girls and like seems like kind of like make the whole thing kind of seem like fun and cool and whatever, and not so disturbing. Now, every victim story starts the same. They start in the kitchen. They go to the house. They say either we're here for Jeffrey or they already know who the girls are. They're brought to the kitchen. The chef makes them something as they wait for Jeffrey Epstein to come downstairs. And then Jeffrey Epstein and Sarah Kellen take whatever student up the stairs for the massage. No, the girls were paid between 200 and like $400. And that looks to be, it depends on how far the massage went. $200 was always given to also the recruiter who brought the other girls, and then the girl will get $300. There are some girls who said they got $350 or $400 from Epstein, and it looks like that depends on the extent of, we should just say, the abuse that they had to go through. The money was more like hush money, and we all know why they give you money. They gave the kids money because that confuses you. Like, you're confused, like, was something wrong? Was it my fault? I got money for it. You're 14, you're 50, you're minor. The amount of money he gave you, the iPods that he was giving the young girls, he got one of the housemen to take flowers to a high school for another girl, renting them cars. That only does one thing, and that's just to distort the abuse. It's similar, because I know a lot of people are like, well, were they really victims if they got this and this? Question. Here, let's do it in a different way. If a woman is getting beat every day, but after he beats you or abuses you, he gives you flowers, does that make it okay? Does that make it your fault? Like, and we should really stop looking at it that way. We also know that through the investigation between Detective Joe and Detective Pagan, Officer Pagan, I'm not sure she was a detective or officer, but they did conduct surveillance of Epstein's home and as well as the Palm Beach International Airport, wherever else he kept his planes. They did trash polls, and we're going to look at that together. They did one controlled call. No, it was two controlled calls. So when Detective Officer Pagan was still handling the case, she did two controlled calls with the very initial victim A, the 14-year-old, to Haley Robson, to see, kind of like have her on record arranging it and see how the conversation went. We went through all the search warrant execution, went through all that. We heard the different reports or experiences written down by the other officers who participated in the search warrants as well as the surveillance. We'll do a quick go through of the trash bowls as well as the search and seizure receipt that we have gone through it before, but we can go through it again. It's hard to read some of it because this is a photocopy of a photocopy. Let's see. We also know that during this investigation, Epstein, with the assistance of his legal counsel, mainly Roy Black, who was connected or recommended by Alan Dershowitz, was utilizing private detectives to intimidate, witness tampering, intimidation, whatever you want to call it. They're surveilling witnesses. They were, accused of impersonating police officers. They're chasing, like standing outside victims' houses. Like, it was insane what they were trying to do to these kids. We also see that Alan Dershowitz sent in MySpace profiles for the 17-year-old, again, trying to discredit her. Let me just say this. We are going to go through the grand jury reports. In the next video, we're going to start going through the grand jury transcripts. But when that package from Dershowitz was brought up in front of the victim, like, she did not recognize it. It was like bits and pieces. Like, some of it was completely made up. Others were like stuff from like old previous MySpaces that maybe she had never used or didn't use anymore. Like, it was not her MySpace. It was obviously like implanted evidence or input evidence. I don't know what the best way it is. All the law people, let me know down below to try and discredit the victim. I don't know why that wasn't even further investigated, that he did that. She did not recognize that as her Facebook, her MySpace page whatsoever. Let's see what else. Case resolution. We do know that eventually, so we met Lana Belhovic, who was the lead. Like, she was a prosecutor in the attorney's office, but I keep saying her true attorney was Jeffrey Epstein. Lana fought to not have Jeffrey Epstein have to go to court. She went behind the backs of the police department, as well as the victims, in discussing offers and giving offers to Alan Dershowitz, Guy Frostin, as well as Jeffrey Epstein without even the police knowing. And as I was going through, I found a letter from Chief of Police Michael Ritter after they did the grand jury and the grand jury indicted him. No thanks to Elena Belolovec, saying that he thought there was violations of law and he was sending this entire case to the FBI for further investigation. Turns out the FBI didn't do much and still hasn't, as we all know, as some of us know from Maria Farmer's experience, because she initially reported Jeffrey Epstein like the 19th, before even this investigation that took place. Maria Farmer went to the FBI to report Jeffrey Epstein, and nothing was done. So, of course, when Michael Ritter tried to go to the FBI again, nothing was done. They said everything was spick and span, but don't worry. Again, we have all that to go through here, the SORA, the New York. So it looks like after this in 2010, then the victims are, there's so much that went on with this, but I am here to guide us all through it, uncover the truth. It might be like freaking 6 months before we go through all of this, but we'll do it together. So now I think it's about time we get to just review all the evidence we do have access to and go through the timelines and then bring it up to wrap it up. And again, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to hit that subscribe button for all those people who want to know the facts, the truth, the entire story, no rhetoric. Join our community. Let's discuss it. Please leave all your comments below, questions below. The best way we can really get through this together, get to understand it together, and find some healing together is if we are open with each other. Let's discuss it with each other, even the hard parts. Completely free and open. And also head over to Substack. Everything is pinned in the descriptions and comment below. All right, let's get to it. Okay, ladies and gents, and everything everyone in between, everything and anyone in between. I think we're gonna start. I think it'll be better to start bottom up. We did already go through these trash balls, but let's do a little refresher. So it says this is the trash ball evidence from September 21st, 2005, day after Epstein left. So it looks like they witnessed Epstein leaving Palm Beach, and then they went in and did this trash ball. And in that trash bowl of after Jeffrey Epstein fled Palm Beach, that is completely redacted. So that must have to do with a minor victim's information and names. So if you remember when we were reading the police notes, they just kept saying that there was communications and message pads with Jeffrey Epstein's name at the bottom. That could also be it. Again, we have this receipt from Vice Restaurant. Again, trash bowl. Doesn't matter. There's a note Larry recommends leaving. That note would probably be about Larry Viscosi. He took over David Rogers as a primary pilot. He was also given like stakes in some of the shell companies. Long story. Part of it is the USVI videos I did. You get to hear a little bit more about Larry. We may circle back about his involvement and everything as we're going through the depositions as well. Did you guys see? Do you remember what he looks like? Let me show you a picture of Larry Viscosi. Do you see that? Do you see that? Something about this man just screams creeper. I don't know him. They say you can't judge a book by its cover. But this cover said, "Your kids, hide your kids." Okay, that's very weird. What was I saying about Larry? Okay, we were looking at the notes. Let me go back to that screen for you guys. So, what else do we have? We do remember that the note said there was a bunch of email notes with girls' names. That looks like the Tammy or Tommy, just names scribbled. That was marked in Detective Joe's notes. Bard was the chiropractor. I believe we did go through Bard's name towards the end, and he was one of the phone numbers from or to found off either I think Sarah Cowan's phone was this number. And when Detective Joe looked at the number, he found like he was chiropractor. Next note is, and yeah, some thinking probably a victim and a number for her. I would like it to be, well, a lot of these are photocopies, so we're not able to see everything. I was about to apologize, but it's not my fault. And then we remember, we read previously, this is the note from Alberto to Alfredo. I believe this note was to Alfredo Rodriguez, who attempted to quit during the investigation, it looks like. And Jeffrey Epstein said, For those millennials out there who watch this show, another problematic afterwards hide completely ruined me. Anyway, so this letter reminds me of when Kelso tries to break up with Jackie. And she's just like, no, no. Anyway, on a serious note. So this letter is from Jeffrey Epstein to Alfredo. And what he's saying, Alfredo wanted to quit, and Jeffrey Epstein is guilt tripping him and gaslighting him, calling him family. There's a more clear part that we'll look at again together, but kind of telling him like, we're a family and you can't quit and you promised to do this, this, and that. And from that note, and reading on like further investigations, especially when he started, because after everything went down in Palm Beach, he basically moved to St. James, USVI. So it seems like he was able to convince Alfredo to stay on. And I think, I am not sure, so don't hold it to me. I believe Alfredo was the chef who was present at Little St. James at the island when a young girl was taken there and they took her passports and stuff, and she was like crying to him and so scared. And we have it in one of his depositions potentially. There's so much notes to go through, but we'll get to that point. But I believe he was privy to an underage girl, like basically being held in USVI by Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and I believe Eva Anderson, now Dubin, was there as well. Let's continue. Just more phone numbers found in the trash. And this is the more clear copy I was telling you. It says, Alfredo, I received your letter with great disappointment. Unfortunately, today I cannot accept your resignation. Like I said, it was him saying no. He's like, I'm sorry, but it's not that simple to abandon a family member, no matter how frustrating or good looking he may be. Absolute narcissistic and sociopath. Absolute narcissistic sociopath in Jeffrey Epstein with his mutilated egg-shaped wee-wee. Continue on. I will continue to embarrass that man even in death. He deserves that. So it just goes on to like him basically begging Alfredo not to go and like guilt tripping him with stuff that he was supposed to do like years ago for Christmas and all that stuff. Ending with, I remain your friend, Jeffrey. Like complete gaslight of the whole situation. And then of course, just more numbers. Jeffrey Epstein, this looks like detail 411 find local Asia. Long Island City current phone number. I don't know who they're trying to find. Jeffrey Epstein was trying to find map of Long Island City. He was trying to find someone in Long Island, found them, and then tossed it in the garbage. Do you guys remember, what was it, MapQuest? It looks like that could have been MapQuest. A lot of you Gen Zers and younger people have no idea what MapQuest was. Then we have some message pads. Jeffrey Epstein is a message from a Tony. To Jeffrey Epstein, we have, again, a quick search, and this time, available history for Richard. I hadn't seen this before. The name, that is Virginia's ex-boyfriend / high school puppy love person. Virginia Roberts, the victim. That was his name. Tony Richard. So maybe, see, I thought that Tony was for him. I believe so. Because I think at some time he met Jeffrey Epstein and maybe picked up girls. That's just from memory. Don't hold me to that. But that's what it looks like. They're looking for information for him for some reason in Long Island. And then we remember in the notes they said it had victims, notes, and Laura for a good time call. And that was in the trash bowl. And those are actually high school students listed there. And then we have the soccer star's name, who is also a victim. And I believe she's the one who no, she's not. He rented multiple cars, but he also rented a car for the soccer star. And it says cannot come out at 7 p.m. tomorrow because of soccer. So that's the available trash bowl notes we have for now. Let's move on to the emails and letters. Next, now we do have the first interview, or I should say deposition, of Juan Alessi when he spoke with Detective Zhao, with his lawyer, Mr. Morel. Donnie Morel was his lawyer, also present on behalf of state attorneys. Page 2, page 4. Examination of Juan Alessi with Detective Joe Riccieri. Sorry if I'm scrolling a bit too fast. And Here upon her statement before Susan Schelling. 1 P. Alessi. This is Monday, I don't have a date on this. Anyway, this is his first examination by Detective Joe. It starts with question, Mr. Alessi, I'm Detective Joe Carey with the Palm Beach PD. As I explained to you over the telephone, I'm conducting an investigation in a former employee of yours. I just spoke with your wife and she told me you guys worked for Mr. Epstein for 8 years. One answers, yes, she did work for 8 years. I worked longer. I was there before my wife came. Detective Joe asks, before your wife came? One replies, I started full time with him on January 1st, 1991, and we both left December 1st, 2002. So they left before the investigation even started. One goes on to say, so I worked 11 years exactly. Prior to that, prior to working full time for him, I worked part time on an off basis. Then Detective Joe asks what were his responsibilities, to which one replies, in the full-time basis, I started as a houseman and I became a major domo and butler and everything else, driver and did everything. We both did all the chores in the house, but I was in charge of the house. I was above my wife and above the cleaning crew, the gardeners, pool people, so I was house manager, major domo. And then Detective goes on to say you would have been the go-to guy for the house. One repeats yes, and the one who would get the blame. A detective asks, we are talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and then one replies, of course. The next question is, do you remember the address of the house? One replies, 558 El Brio. Actually, it's 358 El Brio. But again, this is 2010. When did it start? 2000. 3 years. 3 years before he left 3 years before the investigation started. So that I can say it's 358 El Brio because we've said it over and over again. So then Detective Joe asks, was it at the beginning of the street? And then he says, no, it's at the end on the left side. So address slightly wrong, off by one number, but recalls where the house is. Question, we're talking about the same house. So no, that's not a question. Detective Joe confirmed that they're talking about the same house. Next question is, during the time that he was there, you prepared the house, did all the chores. So he is Jeffrey Epstein. And did you do any of the cleaning? One replies, sometimes, many times I did. Last 2 or 3 years, the work was so much that we have to hire. We hire a cleanup crew that they came twice a week or once a week. Then it was a twice a week. Depends upon his schedule because he did not allow anybody at the house except us when he was in town. So when he was in town, it was just us doing the cleaning and the cooking, the driving, shopping, everything else. Then Detective Joe asks, did you stay on property in the guest house? One replies, yes and no. We had an apartment across the bridge. We had an apartment in Tower 155 on Flagrant, and we had an apartment at the house. Then Detective Joe asks him, why would you stay at the house then? One replies, we stay at the house mostly when he was there. When he was not in town, we went home. We went to our apartment. When he was there, it was the job. It was just too much to go home 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and come back 5 o'clock in the morning. We would just stay and sleep and get up and work. Next question. When he was in town, did he receive a lot of guests at the house? 9, 7. Oh, look at that. It's missing a page. You know what? Because of this, I didn't notice like earlier when I was scrolling through that's missing a page. I have complete depositions that are not missing pages. So for that matter, I'm going to halt here with this one Alessi deposition. And we will review the depositions together. I also need time to kind of go through everything because I have halves, I have completes, and then I have copies of the full depositions without anything missing. But let's hold off for now for once. But it just says it's him talking about the girls that came over, how many massages, sometimes 1, 2, or many massages. He said over the time that he was there, he saw maybe 100, maybe 200 masseuses come over there. He does state one of the girls looked very young in there, but we'll look over all that one stuff when I have a copy of the full deposition without missing pages. And I know a lot of people are complaining about missing pages. It took a lot of work for me to find like full files without stuff missing. Even the police notes. I have so many copies with pages and things taken out and redacted. It took a lot of hunting for me to be able to find the full copy of all the police files. So now let's see what else should we move on to here. Okay, next thing that we're going to jump to is a package that I believe it says Lana's name on it. And this is the notice of depositions sent out to different people. Yeah, it was a package to Belolovec. But it was notice of depositions for some. Courtney Wild, we already have heard Courtney Wild's name. Brittany Beal, we've heard her name. These are redacted. So usually when it's redacted, like I've been saying throughout, this is because they're still minor victims. So these are notice of depositions for these people that were sent out. We have for Courtney Wild and Haley Robson and 2 other girls, redacted, more notices of deposition, completely redacted from this one, but that is from Goldberg and Weiss, Attorney Goldberg and Weiss's office. Again, another deposition for somebody else. So these are packages that are sent to Lana Belolovec. I call her Balhal. Just, yeah, asking different people. A lot of it is redacted because they're still minors and they're victims, letting them know that they need to appear in court and provide their deposition in the state of Florida versus Jeffrey Epstein case. Now we jump to January of 2006, so before the grand jury. And this is when when Detective Joe, with the help of Dahlia Weiss, when she was still part of the case before they kicked her off, and Guy Froston, when he was still the lawyer before he got kicked off, they were trying to get a hold of Juan Alessi and Giannis and all the other like house staff to talk to. So this is an email or a letter sent by fax to Lana Belolovec, and it says, "Dear Miss Belolovec, this is from Guy Froston. As you know, I represent Mr. Jeff Epstein. Mr. Epstein's house manager, Giannis, was asked to speak with your office regarding a matter that I represent Mr. Epstein on. In anticipation of Mr. B's meeting with your office, he decided to retain legal counsel. Yesterday, he met with and retained attorney Michael Salnick, who will be attending Mr. B's statement in your office today at 1:30 p.m. Since your questioning of Mr. B concerns information that he may have that arises out of his employment with Mr. Epstein will be paying Mr. B's attorney fees. I felt it important to notify you of this third-party attorney fee payment structure and confirm that you have no objection. Mr. Epstein would like to wire the payment to Mr. Salnick's representation to Mr. Salnick as soon as possible. Therefore, I would appreciate your getting back to me today on this issue." So it looks like, well, Epstein was paying for the lawyer fees for his house managers and everybody else, that the witnesses, he was also paying for their fees. Now, I don't know, because I don't know American law or Florida law, if it is acceptable for a defendant to pay for the lawyers of those supposed to be testifying in his case against him. I feel like that would be a conflict, like problem with a conflict, whatever that word is. I keep forgetting words today. Like conflict issue right there. I am not sure if there's any lawyers. Let us know. I'm also a big fan of what I was trying to say, and I completely forgot how to speak for a second, is I do not know the law. If there's only any lawyers reading this, seeing this in the chat, let us know if this is a conflict of interest. There's the word conflict of interest. And I'm also a super huge fan of Emily D. Baker. If there's anyone else here, maybe you can get her to help us out with this one and let us know. Explain the legal parts of this as well, because I don't know your country's laws. I don't know the United States laws. I don't know state laws. I'm just here reading the legal files for you. All right, let's move on to the next document. The next document appears to be from Michael Solnick to Dahlia White. So that's Yana. So after, I guess, at this point, Alana Belolovec has said, yep, go ahead. He has sent the payment, and Michael Solnick is officially representing Giannis. And this is to say they shall confirm or is scheduling a meeting with my client on Tuesday, January 17th. So it looks like, yeah, he got approval to be his lawyer, be paid for by Jeffrey Epstein, and then they rescheduled for him to come in and talk again. We do have depositions of Alfredo that we'll look at another time. I think let's do the depositions all together. I hope this way of kind of going through it is okay for everybody and it doesn't get you too confused. We're going to do this, and then we're going to look at the grand jury notes, then maybe refer the deposition, but we also have a statement of undisputed facts that is very interesting. That is a tomorrow problem. All right, so it looks like, oh, this is another memo from Michael Solnick on behalf of, I'm believing, Giannis, because that's his only client. And it looks like he was asking if he can pick up his computer and related equipment before a meeting on Tuesday. So I guess they had confiscated one of the computers confiscated from the search warrants. Could have been Giannis's computer, is what I'm reading from all this. And then what is the next now? Now, the next email is January 13th, 2000. And this is again from Guy Fawson. This is to Lana. And it states, please allow this letter to serve as formal notice that I represent Mr. Jeffrey Epstein in regard to the investigation your office is conducting for Mr. Epstein. Additionally, Alan Dershowitz, Esquire, who is a close friend of Mr. Epstein, is serving as counsel to me in my representation of Mr. Epstein. Mr. Dershowitz is working closely with me on this matter, and in the event of charges are filed, will likely petition to enter an appearance pro hac vice along with other counsel. I appreciate the dialogue you have permitted throughout the investigation. I trust you will still invite me for a pre-filling interview in the event the state to say has enough evidence to charge Mr. Epstein with a crime. So this is before. So Guy Fawston, we all know at some point he was yeeted out of the case. He was completely fired out of the case. Shout out to Emily. When I say yeeted, he was fired because, well, once it was stated that they were going to grand jury, and I don't know if it was Alan Dershowitz. Could have been. I don't know if Mr. Dershowitz had anything to do with his firing. But if we remember, Guy Fawston was the first lawyer, and Lana was working with also Dahlia Weiss. All the subpoenas and requests and search warrants and everything is backed up by Dahlia Weiss. At some point when they decided we're still going to grand jury, Epstein fired Guy Fawston because, of course, he wasn't able to get him to help him escape the charges. So he fires Guy Fawston, hires Jack Goldbard, which in turn gets ASA Weiss thrown off the case because she's married to someone who works in Goldberg's office, leaving only Lana Belolovec as the acting ASA in the case. We'll be able to see highly, highly favored Jeffrey Epstein. All right, let's see. What's the next email package we have here? Okay, now this email is from Alan Dershowitz straight to Detective Joe. Now, if we remember, one of the victims had complained, and Detective Joe, being the good officer he is, followed up with one of the private investigators from Roy Black or Dershowitz. And anytime they talk about it, they put Roy Black and Alan Dershowitz together, had represented themselves to be falsely to be a police officer. So now this is Alan Dershowitz's attempt in saving face and sending this email to Detective Joe directly. Let's do a quick review of the email. Okay, for this reading, I'm going to try and be less opinionated and animated as I read it through, as I was the last time when we first read it. It states from, let's start with, okay, Alan Dershowitz, 1525 Massachusetts Avenue, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Remember, Alan Dershowitz was a lawyer, was a teaching at Harvard. He was a professor of law, I suppose, at Harvard. So it goes on to say, Dear Detective Ricari, I'm sending you this letter in response to the serious concern you raised at our meeting regarding an alleged claim that one of our investigators had misrepresented himself as a police officer and in fact had actually attempted to impersonate you. Okay, so it looks like they had a meeting with Detective Joe. Dershowitz did. As I told you, neither do you know what I think that meeting was? When Dershowitz first tried to give Detective Ricari allegedly fake MySpace pages to discredit the minor underage victims. So it goes on to say, as I told you, neither I nor my client would ever tolerate any such conduct on the part of our investigators. With that in mind, I immediately began an inquiry of our staff and believe the contemporaneous notes taken by our investigators while attempting to interview redacted minor victim will provide the necessary explanation for your thoroughly justified consternation. It will also, I believe, provide a more troublesome and telling illustration of her character. This is not a 14-year-old victim. This is Alan Dershowitz, again, trying to discredit the character of another minor victim of Jeffrey Epstein. It says, you will know that she herself has chosen to go by the nickname of Pimp Juice. Wait, what's it? It will also, wait. Let's start again. To explanation of our thoroughly justified consternation, it will also, I believe, provide a more troublesome and telling illustration of her character. At our meeting, you may recall I also advised you that our investigation had discovered at least one of our websites. Oh, yes, I was right. That I'm enclosing. Some examples you will note that she herself has chosen to go by the name Pimp Juice, and this site goes on to detail into photos her apparent fascination with marijuana. This will come as no surprise to you, as I am sure you're already aware of her recent Palm Beach arrest for both possession of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. So what Alan Dershowitz is trying to say here, if you're 14, 16, a minor, and you think you want to call yourself Pimp Juice, and you smoke marijuana, that means you be molested. It's okay for you to get molested. It's okay for you to get abused by another. Are you trying to say to us, Alan Dershowitz, that because of who she is, she brought this on herself? Let's keep going. Says the following raw notes were taken by investigators, one of whom suffers from a quite distinct speech impediment, making therefore a truly innocent claim of impersonation virtually impossible. Like it was virtually impossible for you, Dershowitz, to be at the island when 5 seconds later you admit you were there and you got massages. I think Alan Dershowitz needs to go back, open up a dictionary, and really understand what virtually impossible means. Goes on to say both of them have many years' experience in conducting defense investigations and debriefing witnesses. Side note is, as I was trying to find the affidavit letter, I was able to later on find pictures and evidence of the stalking from the private investigators, but that's later on that we'll be able to see. Goes on. Say, all right, so they have years. In this instance, they were instructed to take her death statement verbatim because we feared that she, an accomplished drama student, might try to mislead them as successfully as she had misled others. They were instructed to ask detailed questions to further elucidate her previous pronouncements regarding the extreme length she would go, as she put it off, to be rich. No, I mean really, really rich. But as you will read, they never got a chance to ask even a single question. Oh, well, you know what? I'm not surprised because as I showed you guys earlier, he thinks statutory rape is an outdated concept completely. So, of course, he thinks that Alan Dershowitz believes that minors are able to agree and permit their own trafficking and abuse, according to Alan Dershowitz people. And then, in the fact, even they're both well prepared and seasoned investigators, they were quite shocked at the overwhelming non-stop barrage of profanity being hurled at them at a furious pace and a volume from what initially only to be a young woman of slight build and soft demeanor. What's that supposed to mean? The following is an excerpt from the investigator's report detailing her extremely short but nonetheless pungent statements. So it looks like on November 21st, 2005, this is from his investigators. So it says, my partner Steve Kirali and I traveled to Orange Park, Jacksonville in order to attempt to interview a redacted minor. The purpose of having two people present was to act as a witness as to whatever might have been said by the minor during the course of the interview. She lives with her 18-year-old boyfriend, William, and his mother and boyfriend at approximately 6:30 p.m. Paul arrived home. We waited about 10 minutes and approached the residence. I knocked on the door, and a woman who I know now as Mary Parker answered the door. I told her that he would like to speak with redacted name. She said there was no one by that name there. I said there must be because her Jeep was parked out front. She then said, I am sorry, you mean blank? And I said, yes, blank. They came to the door. The following conversation took place. So whom I know now, that confirms that these nouns that Alan Dershowitz says are supposed to be to like, what is that? Innocentifies, make his investigators innocent, are written after the fact. How do we know he didn't write these notes when he got the complaint about being aggressive? We can't take this words for verbatim. These are written after the fact. So He goes on to say he knocked on the door. He said, my name is Bill Riley, handed her my business card, and this is my partner, Steve Corrali. We are investigators from Miami working on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein. The victim said, I don't talk to fucking cops, and I'm not talking to you. Then Riley said her name were not cops. She replied, you need to leave. Get the fuck off my property and leave now. Riley replied, there is no need to be hostile. Who talks like that? We are not cops. There is no need to be hostile. We are not cops. We are just here to learn the truth. And then the victim says, get the fuck off my property. What? You're still standing here? Riley says, we're leaving, but we don't understand. Why are you so hostile? To which the victim said, you have no right to be here. I moved. All that shit is behind me in another world, so get the fuck out of here. This sentiment of I've left all that stuff behind was with a lot of the victims. They didn't want to talk to cops. They didn't want to tell their story. They just kind of wanted to hide, put their heads in the sand and pretend none of it happened. Then he says that goes back into the house and Mary Parker came outside on the porch. Riley says, ma'am, we're not being hostile. We're just here to learn the truth. Miss Parker says, look, she's a good girl and she left down there. We're trying to sort things out now and hire her an attorney. To which I say, I understand, but we're not the bad guys. We're not cops. And Parker says, okay, but she doesn't want to talk with you. And you really have no right being here on my property this time of night. So this was also at night when they're harassing this girl. After she had moved away, they tracked down this victim and are harassing. I don't believe this whole oh, it never happened. He has a speech impediment. We know by now. If you haven't watched the Dershowitz video I did, virtually impossible means a very different thing to Alan Dershowitz. Matter of fact, virtually impossible to Alan Dershowitz in this case means very, very likely impossible from his manners and actions and evidence when he says this. But then, anyway, it goes on to say they're trying to get the people off and eventually they leave. Let's see, Riley, we're talking with Mary and yes, we're leaving, but all we wanted was to learn the truth about you, about what knowledge you may or may not have. As you can gather from this, we believe her to be the source of your concern. Our other, but we believe less likely alternative source for the potential misunderstanding could be a close friend. This is Alan Dershowitz. All right, so it looks like my roommate is having a conversation. If you can hear it, I'm so sorry. It seems very charged, so I don't want to go in and interrupt that. But it looks like the end of the, so you're still here, get out, they tell them. And then Dershowitz ends the email saying, as you can gather from this, we believe her to be the source of your concern. Our other, but we believe less likely alternative source for potential misunderstanding could be a close friend of her, Miss Blank, who goes by the more outlandish self-chosen moniker incomplete web name of Blush fucking something, whose webpage I also enclosed. So he put the victim's MySpace pages on here to show their apparent character of information. So the next email is, Barry Kushner is a state attorney, is to Guy Froston from Alana Belolovec. So now we're in February. We've been looking at stuff from January. So this is February 2006 and says, Dear Mr. Froston, this is to notify you that the certain matters suggesting possible criminal conduct on the part of your client, Jeffrey Epstein, will be presented for consideration by the current session of the Palm Beach County Grand Jury. You and your client are invited to appear before the grand jury in Palm Beach Courthouse on March 7th, 2006 at 9 a.m. or as soon thereafter as they are able to hear you. The invitation is extended to provide an opportunity for your client to present any personal testimony you may think proper. You should understand, however, that anything your client testifies to may be used against him in subsequent criminal prosecution. In the event that you and your client wish to present evidence or testimony of other witnesses, you must submit a written list of names and addresses of potential witnesses by February 16, 2006, and make them available by February 21st, 2006 for a sworn statement at the state attorney's office. Copies of potential physical evidence must be supplied by February 16th, 2006. Keep in mind that only evidence that is relevant to the incident will be presented to the grand jury. This invitation to your client is not an offer of immunity, nor is it an effort to compel your client to participate in grand jury proceedings in any way. Any participation on this part must be entirely voluntary, and a decision not to participate cannot be used to raise an unfavorable presumption against your client. So this is in February. We know the grand jury didn't happen till July. We also know that first they were going to grand jury. Detective Joe let all the victims and witnesses know there was going to be a grand jury. And then it fell through. They said they gave Froston as well as Dershowitz a deal. Oh, we'll see this. So this is before. So I guess the last email letter we read facts from Froston. If you recall, it was asking Lana to let him know in the event that there may be a chance that there's a grand jury or any criminal proceedings. So at this point, it looks like they do decide, yes, we will go to grand jury. This is the first grand jury by Detective Joe. This is when Detective Joe hand delivers the grand jury notices to the different victims. So at this point, I am thinking Froston, Dershowitz, everybody gets the case. They meet with Lana sometime after this, and that is when it proceeds. So after this point, when they meet with Lana and everybody else, at some point, Froston is fired. Weiss is taken off the case, and Lana Bihalovic is the only ASA working the case who is the one who is really giving the offers and managing the offers for Epstein. Next is Dear Lana. So this is February 17th. Right after. When was this letter? So February 9th, Lana sends this email to Froston. So Froston responds. See, I think I was right about my assumptions. Call me psychic. Or really good at reading trails. So December 17th, 2006. This is from Froston. It says, Dear Lana, thank you for meeting yesterday. So like I was saying, so February 9th, she sends this email. And then the following, on February 16th, Lana meets with Epstein and his lawyers and Dershowitz. So, well, it looks maybe just Dershowitz. It says, Dear Lana, thank you for meeting yesterday and allowing Alan and me to address your investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. Pursuant to our discussion, I am enclosing an incident report from Victoria's Secret outlining 3 recent incidents of thefts committed by blank. I did say when we're reading the police report, the one girl, look, another one. So Dershowitz is credited this way. This is another one of Dershowitz discrediting things. Was that they said they submitted incident reports of this minor saying that she was a habitual shoplifter from Victoria's Secret. Who owns Victoria's Secret? Leslie Wexner, the benefactor of Jeffrey Epstein. We also know that Jeffrey Epstein repeatedly sent the girls to Victoria's Secret to buy lingerie and whatever else his perverted mind thought they needed to be dressed as. We also know, going back, sorry, this link just came back. What I do 100% believe, like, they're all connected. Other person, Virginia, was first picked up, taken, and trafficked by a man named Ron Eppinger. Dershowitz said Eppinger does not exist, but I was able to pull up all the FBI notes on Ronald Eppinger. Ronald Eppinger also took the minor 14-year-old. When Ronald Eppinger picked Virginia up, she was 14. And where did he take her? Florida. Where? To go shopping for lingerie? Victoria's Secret. And in Virginia's book, she said even the girls working there were surprised at what they thought. They probably knew exactly what was going on. Her grandpa was picking out for her in lingerie. Another, that's a connection where I think they all kind of connect. And in the Leon Black video, if you do remember, Virginia, when she got too much for Ron Eppinger, he then traded her, he sold her to a man in a different part of Florida called Charlie. One of the victims, another victim who was in the victim who was actually had development. I believe she was on the spectrum. autistic. I believe she was autistic or Down syndrome. One of two. Watch the video to verify. But she was also trained by a guy named Charlie. Ronald Eppinger was also in Florida. Ronald Eppinger also had a ranch that he took the girls out to hide out when he was being investigated before he fled the country. I'm submitting the incident report with express understanding that it will be kept in strict confidence. If it's a real report, why is it being kept in strict confidence? Probably because it's fake. Specifically, since the report only concerns the victim, I believe there's no good faith reason in any contact you may have with the store to mention Mr. Epstein's name or the investigation. I am submitting this incident report with express understanding that it will be kept in strict confidence. This is a shoplifting incidents report. Specifically, since the report only concerns the victim, I believe there is no good faith reason in any contact you may have with the store to mention Mr. Epstein's name or the investigation, especially in light of reports from multiple witnesses indicating Detective Joe is providing damaging misinformation. So they're trying to discredit. So obviously, because Detective Joe wasn't buying what they're putting down, guess what, Dershowitz? Detective Joe had looked at all the victims' MySpace pages prior to concocting this amalgamation messed up website page for the victims. That's why he wasn't buying your BS. Goes on. So now they're trying to say it's Detective Joe who's giving damaging misinformation about the case. And they're asking, how do you give someone a police incident report of shoplifting from Victoria's Secret and then ask them not to talk to the store? Are you crazy? Another reason, why do we believe this to be real? Well, Lana Bilalovic did. Anyway, it goes on. Additionally, I'm enclosing a credit card receipt with non-relevant information redacted, confirming the purchase of the strap-on dildo that Thing purchased at Guys and Dolls. It will make clear that when the dildo was purchased, she was over 18 years old and she charged the purchase to Nadia Merchenkova's credit card. Miss Merchenkova had never before been to Guys and Dolls and was taken there by the victim, who indicated it was her favorite stop. Oh yes, I call BS. I'm sorry, I call BS. We go on. I hope by presenting this meaningful information will bring us closer to a resolution. If you have any questions before our next meeting on Thursday, February 23rd at 11 a.m., please do not hesitate to contact. Very truly yours, Guy Frostin, Esquire. Alrighty then. Thank you, Mr. Frosty. Now let's jump to, if we can find, this is February 17th. What is this email? Oh, this is from January 13th. And this is just the formal representation saying him and Dershowitz. We already read this. I think there's double copies of a lot of the stuff, but that's just another copy of the email or facsimile. Fax sent from Frostin letting Alana know that he is the acting attorney with the support of Alan Dershowitz on the Jeffrey Epstein case. So the next fax transmission is April 17, 2000. This, if approved by DOC, Department of Corrections. This is from Guy Frostin. He's still the lawyer at this point, and it says, Dear Lana, I am in receipt of your letter of today's date, confirming the offer of settlement in Jeffrey Epstein's matter. So this is the first offer that Lana gave them so they would avoid grand jury and the embarrassment for her client, Jeffrey Epstein. So it goes, please allow the response to serve as my acceptance with the following clarifications. 1, you have agreed to allow Mr. Epstein to enter guilty best interest plea. Additionally, you have agreed to review authority I provide concerning the effect a guilty plea has on a civil matter and in good faith consider allowing Mr. Epstein to plead no contest. 2, regarding the supervised contact, your letter refers to an approved adult. In our meeting today, you did not mention that the supervisor had to be approved. I agree that the supervisor must be an adult other than Ms. Merchenkova and Ms. Kellen, with knowledge of the underlying facts. Additionally, I need to confirm that Mr. Epstein may be with his goddaughter without supervision. Goddaughter, that would be Glenn Dubin and Eva's child. I wonder how she is. Let's keep her out of this completely. Let's try and keep her out of this. It's not her fault. She was birthed into a world by deplorables. And next it goes, number 3, you agreed not to subject You agreed not to object to my selecting a duty licensed and experienced psychologist to conduct the evaluation. Well, that's lovely. So now Jeffrey Epstein gets to decide what psychologist calls him as deviant or not. Well, that's very nice. How many other defendants do you think got this privilege? Next is 4. I accept the provision for payment of costs of investigation from the Palm Beach Police Department as long as the cost is reasonable. B, Lana is asking them for money. But I also don't know how common this is. So again, anybody in the comments in Palm Beach, in Florida, lawyers who understand the law, Emily D. Baker, fans of Emily D. Baker. I keep shutting out because I freaking love her. But help us understand these different parts of the law. And once again, remember, guys, I let you know that you'll be able to download these documents for yourself on Substack so you can for further review. So no review. I'm not gatekeeping. I got nothing to lose, and I believe everybody should have access to this information and documents. And hopefully, because I am batch recording or sending everything out at once, it won't be stopped by the powers that be. Next, it says, I accept the provisions of payment. Oh, we said that. Number 5 is, although your correspondence does not mention travel, I am confirming your agreement to allow Mr. Epstein to travel for business purposes. In line with our discussion, I request that you agree to allow Mr. Epstein to travel for philanthropy as well. Remember, part of Jeffrey Epstein's guides to lure victims was in the disguise of philanthropy. He would meet at-risk families, let them know and promise them the world, even up to paying their rent in New York City or wherever else they live, in exchange for him also taking their daughters to educate them. And he'll fly these girls out back and forth to USVI. Continue. Okay, pursuant to this acceptance, I trust that you will cancel the presenting this matter to grand jury tomorrow. Oh, shoot. So this is right before the first grand jury was taken. Please contact me as soon as possible so we can continue to work through the filing, processing, and plea resolution in this matter. Now, we also remember that Detective Joe did note that this offer went out. He was just surprised because no one was confirming the grand jury date. Parents were trying to call into the state attorney's office for updates to when this grand jury was supposed to happen, and their answers were going unanswered. No one was communicating to the Palm Beach Police Department from the state attorney's office, and no one was communicating to the victims and parents of victims about this grand jury process happening. And then when Detective Joe was eventually able to get a hold of Lana, that is when he found out that Weiss had been kicked off the case because of the Goldberg thing and that an offer was made and there'll be no need for grand jury. Okay, next letter of evidence. Now, okay, so the next one is another one from Mr. Alan Dershowitz, and this is April 19th, 2006. I think it's so funny because if you remember, I don't know if you remember, if you've watched the Alan Dershowitz video that I did on Netflix, he vehemently said, I had no part in the investigation. I had no part in the discussions for the offer. I was like, he just denied everything. And it's so funny that what this whole thing's like, Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz. So this is from his office again in Cambridge. This one's dated April 19th, 2006. It's to Lana. It says, Dear Lana, Guy has asked me to provide you with research on why it makes a difference whether Mr. Epstein pleads nolo contiende, which contiendere, nolo contendere. I don't know how to say that, but I think that means no contest or guilty in Latin. I think it's usually Latin that they use. As you can see from the enclosed statute, a plea of nolo contendere, I'm so sorry for butchering that, is not admissible as an admission against interest in a subsequent civil case. A plea of guilty, even so-called best interest plea of guilty, is admissible. That is the only real legal difference. If you need anything further, please do not hesitate to call me or Guy. Sincerely, Alan Dershowitz. So it looks like here is what he sent for his research. West Florida Statutes Annotated, Title 7, Evidence, Chapters 90 to 92, Chapter 90, Evidence Code. Offer to plead guilty, nolo contendere, admissible in civil or law. So if a plea of guilty later withdrawn, or a plea of no contest, or an offer to plead guilty or no contest to the crime charge or any other crime is inadmissible in any civil or criminal proceedings. Evidence of statements made in connection with any of the pleas or offers is inadmissible except if such statements are offered in a prosecution under Chapter 837. Now, I know the MPA does go on to save all like co-conspirators, and part of it was that too. But I am also thinking as why they're saying civil or criminal right now, because Lana decided to go ahead with just the one victim, the 14-year-old. And part of that settlement was for Jeffrey Epstein to pay the family like a lump sum settlement in addition to paying for the investigation, paying the Palm Beach. I don't know if it goes to the attorney's office or the police department for the investigation, but I remember that's one of them. So that's probably why maybe Alan Dershowitz is putting this on to him. Okay, and now we're getting to the end of this redacted package, and it's the MySpace pages that Dershowitz sent in to the state attorney's office and tried to give to Detective Joan an attempt to discredit the victims and also stop the investigation against his good buddy Jeffrey Epstein. So now we have June 5th, 2006. Let's see what this is. Let's go back up here to the beginning. From the office of Gerald Leffercott. Okay. This was hand delivered. This is a New York office. New York law firm, R.E. Jeffrey Epstein. And this is June 5th, 2006. So it's a month before the grand jury. So it goes on to say, Dear Miss Bilovic, follow up from our meeting of June 1st, 2006. This B is meeting with Epstein's, the prosecutor. I don't know. Is it common for the state attorney's office and prosecutor of the case, Anna, is it common for them to meet with the defense so much during an investigation? Let me know in the comments below. So it says, Dear Miss Bilovic, as a follow-up for our meeting on June 1st, 2006, in an attempt to resolve this matter, we write to address the following issues which have been risen. 1. The risk where the client to plead to aggravated assault in Florida that he may be subject to offender registration statutes in other jurisdictions, now or in the future. 2. The nature of the charge of felony aggravated assault with intent to commit a felony and how it does not reflect the allegations herein. And 3, whether felony conviction itself is justified based on the available evidence. So they're still trying to fight to, not go to grand jury. And if you guys remember from the last video, and we're kind of like rounding out the notes, the first grand jury was taken down. Lana did not want to go to grand jury, but Krishna, because of Detective Joe talking to Michael Ritter, the chief of police, and I believe they talked to Krishna at the state attorney's office, he said, no, Anna, we have to take this to grand jury. She got it squashed. Her boss has said no. So it goes on to say, at the outset of our June 1st, 2006 meeting, we were mindful that an understanding has been reached with prior counsel. It was reached, however, with a clear and joint understanding that the client would not be subject to offender registration requirements in any state or foreign jurisdiction. Moreover, the limited time provided did not allow for an opportunity to conduct an even cursory investigation or research into the ramifications. Were any charge to be brought, having now learned of the serious danger a plea to felony aggravated assault presents with regard to offender registration, coupled with the facts presented at our meeting and outlined below, we strongly believe that a plea of misdemeanor solicitation is the more appropriate resolution. So they're like, thank you for what you think to charge me. I think we should charge me with this. How common is that? Imagine you get caught like doing a crime, like, yeah, no, I think you should charge me for this. So it says, as we discussed, this could include an agreed upon allocation as we are mindful of your concern about labeling the girls prostitutes. In this regard, as we discussed, the law and relevant statutes are clear that the complaining witness need not to be a prostitute in order to satisfy the elements of the offense. So Jeffrey Epstein's legal counsel by reading this paragraph, not only was arguing that, well, he was letting Lana know what they were more comfortable with the charges being, and they also wanted to label the minor victims a prostitute, so it would be solicitation instead of an aggravated assault that Jeffrey Epstein would be charged with. Continues to say, an aggravated assault conviction may subject the client to registration. So obviously, Jeffrey Epstein and his defense law firms are trying to not have him have to register as a sex offender. So it goes on to say there's a likely risk that a plea of aggravated assault will expose the client to registration obligation under Megan's law statutes, either as currently written or as likely to be amended or expanded in the future in a number of jurisdictions, including but not limited to ones where he lives, works, or spends time. This is true regardless of whether the plea expressly specifies that the felony he had the intent to commit was lewd and lascivious behavior under or battery. Remember, that is what Detective Joe had presented the charges to be. That was it from Detective Joe. Lewd and lascivious behavior and battery. As my client is a full-time resident of the Virgin Islands, the most immediate and obvious unintended result of a plea to felony aggravated assault is the possible registration in his place of residence. The Virgin Islands statute is very broad, imposing a duty to register upon a person convicted on or other after July 1st, 1994 of a criminal offense against a federal, military, or foreign court shall have the same duty to register as any other person under this statute. Failure to register is a crime. Further, the Virgin Islands registry is currently accessible only to law enforcement. Ongoing discussions about opening it up to public. So under current law, a plea of aggravated assault will also likely be subject, let's make this a bit bigger for my aging eyes, also likely be subject to client registration in secondary domicile of New York. The list of registrable offenses in New York under the Offender Registration Act, SORA, is a long one, which continues to grow. In 1999, 8 new offenses were added to a list of registrable offenses. And again, on March 11th, 2002. As I was reading this, I didn't want to stop and confuse you guys too much. But again, reference to the USVI investigation that I did, Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, being so rich and conniving, and due to the loose morals of the Virgin Island representatives and government, he was able to actually help them, literally rewrite their offender laws while he was there to be able to shield them. He had a say in amending their laws to suit him. And to be able to do that, he paid a bunch of stuff. In addition to paying for the tuition of the Governor General's students at Governor General's kids' private school tuition was part of what he had to pay for the perk of being able to rewrite the sex offender laws in USVI. Let's continue. And then it says, in New York, a person must register as a sex offender if they're required to register in the jurisdiction of conviction, or if conviction is in a foreign jurisdiction. His conviction there means all the essential elements of New York's enumerated offenses. In spite of the statutory reference to essential elements, some New York courts have looked at the facts underlying the offense of conviction, rather than to the formal elements of the offense in determining whether the registration is required, each finding that a defendant was required to register on the basis of the underlying conduct, even though the essential elements test was not satisfied. The same serious concern arises in other states, including California and Colorado, which authorize courts to look behind the plea and beyond the formal elements of the offense of conviction and enable them on a case-by-case basis to determine if registration is required. So it looks like this whole entire thing is them arguing that he should be charged with a less crime so he doesn't have to register as a offender in other places or ever. Even if, so moreover, as you indicated at our meeting, there is no guarantee that the Florida legislature will not legislature. However, let's start from here. Okay, so Okay, other states that he might. Colorado, I think he had stuff in. Is that where the ranch is? New Mexico? I don't know. But anyway, he goes on to say state the laws in different states. And then he goes on to say, with regard to Florida, as you know, it is reasonably clear that under Florida's current version of Megan's Law, a plea of aggravated assault would not subject the client to registration in Florida since it is not included among the state's enumerated offender offenses. However, the offense of battery is on the list, as well as a charge of lewd and lascivious behavior, charges brought by Detective Joe. So there is no assurance that in the future a Florida prosecutor or court will not have the position that where the aggravated assault is combined with what some states have labeled as motivated intent, registration is required. Moreover, as you indicated at our meeting, there is no guarantee that Florida legislature will not expand the category of persons subject to Megan's Law and expressly make a persons convicted of aggravated assault subject to the law, especially where the felony the actor had the intent to commit is a offense and the victim is a minor. The trend today is towards expansion, not contraction, of these kinds of statutes. As you noted, Florida will be no exception. All right, over the last 20 years, expanded registration requirements of the law. This is all law stuff. See news update, and the ex post facto clause stands as to significant bar. Okay, so this is other, what is it called? Well, previous cases that they're looking at. I forget. It gets a little hard. I forget words. Precedence. I think the word that I'm looking for is precedence. And then it goes, if this trend continues as it likely will, the client will almost certainly be subject to offender registration. Even if the client is not and will never be subject to registration requirements under Florida's law, a plea of aggravated assault under the circumstances of this case would subject him to Megan's Law requirements in this jurisdiction. Thus, if the client pleads guilty to the proposed aggravated assault charge, there is no grave risk that under existing state of Virgin Islands law, quite apart from future expansion or expansive construction of those laws, he will be subject to offender registration requirements and or criminal exposure for failure to register. Well, luckily for fucking Jeffrey Epstein was he joined the construction of the USVI laws and built them to his liking. And there's even a graver risk still that there will be future expansion of statutes. Okay, so still arguing for him not to be as an offender. Indeed, as recognized during our meeting, and then says, indeed, as you recognized during our meeting, many people who were advised by competent counsel to plead guilty to offenses when registration was not required have now been horrified to find themselves subject to registration laws enacted or expanded after their guilty pleas without any recourse. This seems like a very long, in-depth meeting between the ASA and Jeffrey Epstein's, defense counsel. This defense counsel is also from New York. Did she fly to New York for this meeting? Where she was able to give them tips on other people and how other cases have gone. Okay, it says, finally, although there is some risk that even a plea of misdemeanor charge could trigger registration in some jurisdiction, our research suggests that this risk is considerably lower for a misdemeanor plea than a felony plea. So the lawyers are arguing what they think is more appropriate for Jeffrey Epstein to do. The second thing, aggravated assault is generally considered a violent felony and does not apply to the facts in this case. Assault is generally considered an act of force it creates in the victims, as well as aggravated assault is generally considered a violent felony and does not apply to the facts of this case. States, assault is generally considered an act of force. It creates the victim a well-founded fear of imminent violence. The general public is certainly not aware of Florida's unique newest definition. Indeed, as you will agree, in common use, aggravated assault on its face sounds inherently violent. Thus, at the very least, most people will consider an aggravated assault charge, even of the intent to commit a felony of variety, to be a violent crime. In this regard, undifferentiated aggravated assault is one of only 4 crimes listed on FBI's Uniform Crime Report, violent crime category. Most importantly, as noted, this crime clearly does not reflect what allegedly occurred, since there has been no suggestion that a threat of serious bodily harm was made or a deadly weapon used. I beg to differ when it comes to those freaking massagers and he's mutilated. In addition, most pleas are downward. The defendant agrees to waive his rights to trial in return for the prosecution's offer of a downward departure in charging or sentencing. What's a downward departure? Further, in the typical case, a plea involved crimes that bear a close resemblance to the underlying events. The facts herein obviously do not support a charge of aggravated assault. Thus, a plea to same would be inappropriate. And at the thing that they're shutting down why he should not be charged with what he's charged with. And the last one, since the meeting on February 2006, when misdemeanor charges were initially discussed, the state's case has gone considerably weaker. As of February 16, 2006 meeting, you suggested the office was investigating a felony and you indicated you would consider pleading it down to a misdemeanor. So she suggested that she could plead it down to a misdemeanor. As you're aware, since then, much has happened, which makes the alleged case considerably weaker and undermines the credibility of the witness upon which it was based. Already know the following information has come to light, severely damaging the reliability of witness. A witness, redacted, we don't know which one. Remember, they had 17 altogether. Victims. And I believe he handed out about 5 or 6 subpoenas. I'm not sure, but there's a lot. Background including a history of theft, confessions, and repeated denials of stealing from employers and customers, lying about her age, promiscuity, and prostitution. With only one client in prostitution, that was Jeffrey Epstein. Victim boastful, and I don't know if it's the same victim or another, maybe a different victim, but the boastful admission of drug use, underage drinking, activity, shoplifting, and exaggerated of her income, at least $250,000. Representing herself naked on a website and at 17, then 16, then 15, only changing it to a truthful age, coincidentally 4 days before the last scheduled grand jury. If this is about the MySpace pages from Alan Dershowitz, those are questionable. Moving on. In addition, as you have acknowledged, she was found in an inappropriate place in Georgia after the police were called when she ran away from home. So by the sounds of this, it sounds like Lana was providing Jeffrey Epstein's defense attorneys with information about the victim. One of the victims, because it says, in addition, as you have acknowledged, she was found in an inappropriate place in Georgia after the police were called when she ran away from home. This is separate and apart from the Florida police report presented to you detailing her being dropped off by a local drug dealer at 5:45 a.m., only 2 days after returning to West Palm Beach. Being described by the officers clearly on drugs, and 3, both something's parents, criminal history of fraud. All stuff to discredit the victims. And then this is from his New York, Gerald B. Lockhart, PC, that law offices. I believe these are his New York lawyers that are writing this to Lana, who is the ASA in Palm Beach, Florida. And then the last part, in stark contrast to this, is the fact that, as we indicated at the meeting, the client has passed both a rigorous lie detector test conducted by the most highly qualified expert they could find, one whose reputation is beyond reproach, and provided you copies of 2 psychosexual evaluations prepared by experts that you have agreed are well recognized and accepted by the state. I wonder what those reports said. Probably that he's absolutely okay and not a danger. Florida. All right, next one. We're almost done here with this package anyway. It's been a long time. Okay, I always start this when the sun is up. I finish it when the sun is down. Guaranteed, but I am. It is winter. My brain's starting to go, guys. I think we're going to finish this package, and there's going to be 2 parts to this because there is another similar document with evidence just like this. But I'm thinking after we finish all this, we're now on number 4, on page 4, so we're coming to the end. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. and then see how I feel tomorrow. Because like I said at the beginning, it's kind of very toxic to go through all this stuff. But we'll see. I think no, it'll be fine. I think I'll be able to wrap this up tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Friday. Edit over the weekend, and then start feeding it to you guys. All right, so we'll keep going. So this package is addressed to Lana Belolovec. And it is for Barry Krishner. And Barry Krishner is, I believe, that's her boss at the Florida State Attorney's Office. So it reads, Dear Krishner, I write to you to confirm our meeting with Lana on June 14, 2006. It is our hope that in light of recent developments in this case, when we have set forth in our letter of June 5th, 2006, our meetings and herein, we've read all those letters, in particular the fact that there is no sex alleged, this can be disposed of with, at most, an informal agreement, or more appropriately, no charges being filed. So remember again, guys, the grand jury did not happen until July. And if you remember from the notes, it stated that Lana had decided or wanted to decide not to go to grand jury. She had decided not to go to grand jury, but later on, Barry Krishner was like, no, we're taking this to grand jury. So I am seeing this so Lana tried to not take it to grand jury. It was a no-go. So this is Epstein's defense. It's defense team now writing directly to her boss to change his mind about going forward with the grand jury. Okay, let's keep going. As you know, it was only at the June 2006 meeting, after 8 months of investigation, that you and I both learned for the very first time, and I believe to our collective disbelief, that the allegation of the girl did not raise the slightest hint of actual sex. Up until that point, we had all been laboring under the assumption this girl had alleged multiple encounters with my client. In fact, as you are, it was with this in mind that we hired George Startley, a highly respected polygraph expert who's unequivocally confirmed our client's long-held position both that there was no sex and that the girl clearly stated she was 18 years old. Since we now know with certainty that there in fact no allegations of sex and no sex occurred between my client and this girl, I would ask you to consider your previous statement to the fact that you would not bring a touching case, no sex, no charge, and fashioning an appropriate resolution of this matter. And now you guys also remember that despite the police reports marking 17 different victims, Lana decided to only base Epstein charges on the one victim, which was the 14-year-old. And she was the youngest, so definitely able to hold him culpable. But she only went once. No, there wasn't any like insertion or penetration at all. So that's why they're able to say no sex, no charge with her. But we do know he forcibly went into one girl. At least a couple girls said that he did, like, there was insertion without like them wanting it or giving him permission to. He just kind of did it. So that's why he's able to get away with this no sex, no charge, is because Lana decided to poo-poo all the other 16 victims plus and just focus on the 115. Next, it goes, as we have discussed many times, the girl's credibility is highly questionable and has been severely undermined by her actions over the past few months. Repeatedly changing the webpage, while they keep saying this is all about, okay, so this is all points from Alan Dershowitz, fake and fake MySpace that wasn't hers. Repeatedly changing her page in a web page, then 16, then 15, and posting graphic, nude, and suggestive photos of herself, boasting about shoplifting, underage drinking. Okay, remember, well, you haven't seen yet, but you will see that this is all stuff that they picked out of those package of MySpace pages that Alan Dershowitz said belonged to the victim, but when the victim is questioned about it, she says she recognized some stuff, other stuff she had never seen before. She said that some of the stuff in what they presented her was from like MySpace pages she had deleted years ago, like she had put up and deleted, like weren't even active anymore. So that everything they're saying there is highly questionable. Let's keep going. Finally, as you consider your options, I quite frankly think it is unfair to give much weight to the pressure being brought to bear by law enforcement. Again, Thank you, Detective Joe, and everybody else who worked hard on the case. Their comments, which have been brought to my attention, certainly indicate at minimum a lack of objectivity. Yeah, because they are going after a repeated child abuser. PEDO. We don't need objectivity for that. Repeated multiple. They talked to 17 different victims with the exact same story, different ages. You're saying all of them. Like, what lack of objectivity do we need? All of them, like, all different ages of girls, college, whatever, all got together and decided to say the exact same story. Anyway, let's go. With all this in mind, I believe that this is only just, especially now that we are both certain there was no sex involved, that you wouldn't consider that because he did use a massager on her. That could be seen as a sexual act, couldn't it? Continues, I believe that it's only just, especially now that we are both certain there was no sex involved, that your office ought not to prosecute this case. However, given the totality of circumstances, coupled with the fact that a Google search is now a forever reference on any job application, I believe that the girls involved may involve my client and all concerned would be better served without worse than informal resolution of this matter. Money. Certainly, it seems they're trying like basically pay them to go away. Certainly, it seems preferable to filing a charge that we all currently concede would likely not succeed if brought to trial. Well, it did. I appreciate the personal attention you have given this matter and look forward to your response, Jack A. Goldberg. So now, at this point, Frost inspired, Goldberg's taking the reins. All right, and we all know that Barry Krishner, thank you, sir, said, no, let's talk. Let's take this to grand jury. Probably because he actually read the full investigation and police notes and didn't just stop at Lana Belolovic's redacted version of the events and the investigation. So I think we are going to wrap it up here for now. Really quick, I could show you. These are the helicopter manifests that they got. That's one that I hadn't showed you before. This is a copy of the helicopter manifest and you can see Tatiana. Remember, Tatiana was the girl that Dershowitz tried to deny he was with until they showed that he knew, until they showed her. They showed him. They showed him a picture of Tatiana and him together. Tatiana comes up in the Dershowitz. We all know Sarah Kellen, who should be in jail. It's my opinion. It is mine opinion. Nadia, we're going to hear a lot more about Nadia Marchinkova. So I keep saying, hold your judgment when it comes to Nadia. Hold your judgment. Especially when we start going through the depositions and how she was spoken about and how the other girls like knew of her, like what he told the other girls about Tatiana and how she came to be with him and all that stuff. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. And so what did that say? Adriana, I thought I read Melania. I need to go to bed or something. And so it's not yet bedtime, but I have been at this for quite some time. So we're going to wrap it up here. Again, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for supporting. For those who want to have the documents as well with them when they go through the cases and read, the Substack is available for you. Thank you so much for supporting us. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I think it's so important for us to have a discussion on all these things and how it was handled and how best to do forward. I don't know how much will be handled by the current administration, but hey, knowledge is power and the people have the power and we have the voices. So keep talking, keep standing up for the victims. Let's give them their story, their full story back. Let's call out the villains as well as the heroes together. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely night. Have a lovely evening. I will catch you next time when we review the other half of the documents. I am Sonia. And this is the Unredacted Truth.